Hi guys, welcome to this module on Microsoft Project. We're going to look at creating a task list, indenting tasks, formatting the Gantt chart, creating filters and groups, changing working time and embedding documents. But first of all, a task list. Starting at the top, and I'm typing my title, which is going to be Develop Strategy. I'm not going to change the duration or the dates just yet, but just a point, I have my project set to new tasks on auto scheduled, not manual scheduled, so these dates will automatically populate. So first of all, it's going to be coord teams, train staff, develop product, test product, market product, and sell product. So those are my steps. I've already said this is the title for this group of tasks, so I'm going to indent these subtasks by going to the task tab, clicking indent right. So now this becomes a summary task, emboldened. And again, I'm not going to type on this, because if I do type on this, it will make this task a manually scheduled task, which I don't want it to do, because I want it to summarize the subtasks. So duration for coord teams is going to be 5 days. I don't need to type days because the default setting is days. Train staff 3 days, develop product 5 days, test product 5 days, market 5. Now this comes up to tell me that I could basically click on the first one of those 5 if it's going to be 5 all the way down, and use this little cross to pull it down. Usually that comes up on the last one of the type you're doing. Sell product 3 days. So the summary task tells me that the whole project is 5 days. Now what I want to do is show you how to use a recurring task, or the recurring task feature. Sometimes you want to do the same task, like a team meeting, over and over again throughout the year. So over to the task option, and there is recurring tasks. So I'll give it a title, team meeting, duration, leave it at 1 day, and let's say it's going to be every Wednesday, and I'm going to get it to end after 4 occurrences. Click OK to that. Now again, that's a summary task with a recurring task symbol in the information column, and then these small boxes, which if you hover over, tells you that because we've said it's going to be on a Wednesday, it's got what's called a moderate constraint on. In terms of project, these 4 tasks are now more important than these ones at the minute. But there you go, there's a recurring task, and if I click this down, they collapse, and if I click those ones down, they collapse. So at the moment, according to this, the whole project is 16 days. But that is including team meetings. I don't want team meetings to be part of develop strategy, so I'm going to outdent that. Now at the top it says develop strategy is 5 days and team meetings is 16 days. So the whole project is still 16 days, but I can't see that from the top. So I'm just going to insert a summary task again. So if I go insert task there, call this project A, and then indent everything underneath project A, so I get an overarching timeline across the top. So the whole project is still 16 days, and I can collapse these down, and it gives me the structure of the project. Now if you have loads of these, you can use the view option and go to outline and select the different levels there, level 1 and then level 2, and then show all subtasks rather than clicking down individual groups of tasks. Next thing I want to do is a milestone. Milestone is, I call milestones a management checkpoint, so I'll call this one end of phase. Now a milestone needs to have a 0 duration to show the milestone marker on the Gantt chart. This part of the screen is the actual Gantt chart. This whole thing is the Gantt chart view, but this is the Gantt chart itself, and this side is the table, and the table we've got when you first open project is always the entry table. Now obviously if that's the end of phase, it's not in the right place. I want that to move to the end. Now if I change this start date to go after the last team meeting, which is the 29th, I'll put it onto the 30th. It's asking me if I want to move it with a link. I'm not going to have a link on it just yet. Click OK to that and it moves to the 30th. We'll do links later on. So because I've done that, I've physically changed that date. Again, I've got a moderate constraint appearing in the information column. Project likes to schedule things. It likes to schedule things based on durations and links. So if you intervene and change a date, it then becomes, in project terms, slightly more important than any of these tasks in this example, because we haven't changed any dates. Okay, so that's the first stage typed out. Now I want to look at this side, so I'm going to move this bar, which I'm going to call the curtain. That's not the technical name, but it's as good as any. Move it out of the way a little bit so we've exposed this a bit more. I want to put the task names on these tasks. Now there's two ways you can do this. You can go to the Format tab and Format, or you can just double click on any white space on the Gantt chart itself, and then you'll get the same box coming up, bar styles. Now this is like the legend for the Gantt charts, the different Gantt charts, so all the symbols that you will see, plus you can add your own at the bottom there, will appear in this box. But for this little part I want to go to where it says text and change what is the default setting, which is resource names, to just name, which is task name, but project calls it name, and then click OK to that and you'll see the task names coming onto the Gantt chart. Now you can have things on the left, you can have things in the center, and you can have things like that on the right. It's totally up to you, but what you don't want is too much information. The reason I like to see things on this is because quite often people just send or print the Gantt chart, so without tasks on you'd have to print this off as well. So it's totally up to you how you want to display your information. I think it's easier for people. Sometimes also people like to see a line going across there, so on the Format tab you've got these grid line options where if I wanted to Gantt rows there, look, if I select a line, change the color to red for something, that's a bit in your face I think, but people would put maybe black lines across there to make it stand out a bit more so they can follow the tasks all the way across. I'm just going to do undo for that because I don't like that. So that's how you add or remove names on the Gantt chart. Now the timeline across the top, you can edit the timeline by clicking this minus button or the plus button in the corner, zoom in and zoom out, or you can double click on the timeline itself and do it through this timeline box. So at the moment it's set to 2 tiers. I'm going to change that to 3 tiers, and the way this works is the top tier has to have the largest measurement. So at the moment I want to put everything onto weeks, so I'm going to put the middle tier onto weeks, the bottom tier onto weeks. Now it's come up with an error message there, but because it says 5 days there, because when you click this plus and minus, this count box changes. You just have to be careful that you don't get caught out there, because you could get yourself in a little loop going round and round in circles trying to get out of this box. 1 week, 1 week, top tier can go in weeks as well. So what I want is the top tier to stay as it is, so it's giving you the date. But the middle tier, I want to change the label so it shows you the week of the year, that one, what week it is, so week 14 for example. And then the bottom tier, I want to go from the start of the project, so week 1 from the start of the project. And I'll click OK to that and that will apply. Scroll to the right a little bit. So week 1 of the project is week 19 of the year, and it's the 6th of May 2019. Now as you can see on mine, it's quite hard to see the non-working days at the moment, so I'm just going to double click back on that timeline, and you've got the non-working time there. I'm going to change the colour from light grey to a darker colour, probably blue even. See what that looks like. Still can't see that, so dark green. I'm not seeing that. Oh, there we go. Now I can see it. Okay, so how you format this is totally up to you. Putting it back to default is 2 tiers. The default setting is 2 tiers, and the two tiers you work with are the bottom tier and the middle tier. So the bottom tier needs to be on days, the middle tier needs to be on weeks, days and weeks. Click OK to that, and then you can see the Gantt chart clearly. Now if you look at this task looks like, because I've changed that colour to green, which I'm just going to double click on that and change that to a different colour, because that is a bit intrusive. Try blue, that's worse. I'll go for a darker grey then. Okay, I've never been good with colour schemes, but basically this looks like this task is going over the weekend, the way this is sitting at the moment. So do these. And if you are printing this off without this list, so you haven't got the actual durations, people may be mistaken into thinking you are working over the weekend. So what I tend to do on mine is double click on that timeline and just get it to go in front of the taskbars. If I click OK to that, now it's quite obvious that you are not working over the weekend. Now the next thing I want to look at is on the project tab, I want to look at how you change the working time. So change working time on the project tab is for the project. When you add resources, which we'll do later on a different module, each resource has its own calendar. Initially it is just a copy of this standard calendar, or the calendar that you create in this box. The way a project works, it looks at a resource calendar first, and then it looks at the project calendar. So if there's no changes in the resource calendar, it would be a mirror of the project calendar. So what you put in the project calendar are things like holiday shutdowns, factory shutdowns, bank holidays would go here, exceptions, and things like that. So if I put, for example, Easter, we've had Easter, but let's just say pretend it hasn't happened. So let's say Easter is there, Good Friday, and so that there is now shaded out as a non-working time. So that would cascade through everybody else's projects. If you had somebody working over Easter, you would edit their project to allow them to work. Now to set working times, you need to go into this tab, and then you click onto the default option, which you can rename. Go into details, and let's say we finish working on Friday at 12 o'clock. You just get rid of that, click OK to that, and then if you click on any Friday, it should give you that time block there, 8 till 12. Every other day should be the default setting. So that's how you change the times. I'm just going to put that back to the defaults of Friday so it doesn't mess us up later on. So use project default times. If you had a non-working day, you would tick that option. If Saturday and Sunday was working days, you would highlight those two and select it through there, or you could change it in options. Now sometimes some places in the world are quite hot, so you have summer working hours. So if I go, let's go to the 1st of July, 1st of July to the 1st of September, we are going to work summer hours, 2nd of September. So I'll go into details, I select the working week, I'll set these, delete that second block and change that one maybe to 1300. So we work from 8 till 1 in the summer period. So automatically that will flag up. if I go back prior to July, it's the normal working hours. Into July, it gives me the summer working hours. Let's click OK to that. Okay, so that was the project calendar. Now, if I go to the View tab, we'll have a quick look at some of the filters. So you notice there that these tasks highlighted there because things change. It's default to change. You've got this highlight option here where you can select active tasks, for example. You can select critical tasks, for example. You can select milestones, for example, and different things are highlighted. Or you can select no highlight. You've also got the option in there to create your own different highlights. You can create your own triggers for different tasks and different types of tasks. Underneath that, you've got preset filters. Again, you can click on active tasks, which is everything. You can click on critical, which is just those. You can click on milestones, which is just that one, and so on. So these are preset filters, and again, you can create your own filter down the bottom there. Going back to no filter, and then you have this option, which is a group. So you're basically just selecting an option, and these tasks are grouped by that option. So critical there, milestones, and then no group. Now also, in terms of filters, every column has a little drop down arrow in every table, and there are many tables. So if I go to this one, filters, I can say everything that starts next week, and they're just the ones that start next week. And then you get a little filter sign on there, which I'm now going to take off, tick select all, and then I'll come back. So these are quite useful, because if I move this curtain across a little bit, on the resource names, for example, you could select, I know I haven't got any resources at the moment, you could filter by a specific person, and then that would give you just their tasks. Now, back to the project tab. Just want to have a quick look at project information. In project information, this is where you set the start date of the project, which will always be today's date if you just open a new one, unless you change it. It's also where you set whether your project runs from a start date or a finish date. Now, the main difference between these two is when you create a new task on a start date project, it always starts on today's date or the date closest to the project start date. If you've got it on a finish date, the new tasks start at the end of the project and work backwards when you link them up. In this box, you've also got the current date listed there, and this option for status date, which you've also got there on the ribbon. So I don't need to come into this box to change the status date, but you can use the status date to measure how well or how bad you're doing on a project. Calendar options there. You've got the 3 default calendars there, and in the calendar, in the change working time box, you can actually create new calendars in addition to those 3. And then this priority box, which we'll look at in a different module, basically you can change that priority for new tasks to be whatever you want. The default is 500, but the range goes from 1 to 1,000. Basically, if you have a priority set on a task on one of these tasks at 1,000, it's far, far more important, and it won't move than something that's set at 400. When I say it won't move when you ask the computer to rationalize over allocation of resources, for example, which will come on again later on. So just cancel that off, and then I'm just going to double click into one of the tasks. So on the general tab, you can see this information. So this task is a priority of 500, and if I didn't want it to be 500, I could change that there. What I normally tell my class is admin tasks put at 400, engineering tasks that you consider more important put at 600, and then if you do get the computer to rationalize over allocation of resources, it will take that into account, and it will move a 400 priority task before it will move a 600 priority task. So that's project information. Now the last thing on this top part I want to look at is just print preview for a minute. So if I click into print preview, there's the print preview. I've got the legend at the bottom there, which I'm going to remove in a minute. But I want to, when I print my project plan, I want some information to appear at the top here. So to do that, I'm going to go into page setup. Page setup is pretty similar to what you get in other programs, Microsoft programs. Project has the same problem as Excel. There's no quick fix to get it to print on one page. You have to sort of play around with fit on 1 by 2 and adjust the scale and things like that to get it to fit how you want it. Margins, that's very, very small margin area. It's only half an inch, or as it says there, 1.27 centimeters. Show my age, I suppose. But on the header and the footer tabs, this is where you can add project information. Now, what I do for the header tab will apply to the footer tab as well. You can put the same sort of information on there. You've got 3 sections, left, center, right. So in the left section, I'm going to just type my name. In the center section, I'm going to use these little buttons, and I want the date and the time, and you get a little preview there, date and time. And in the right section, I'm going to use these fields, these project fields. So the first one I'm looking at there says percentage complete, so I'm going to add that one. And then I'm going to press enter, and I'm going to add one called actual cost. So add, and then I'm going to press enter, and then I'm going to get one called VAC, variance at completion. These are the ones I normally have on my projects. Now you can see everything's 0 at the moment because we haven't actually done anything in this project, but as this project goes live, once you've saved the baseline, these will then start accruing, and you'll see real-time figures every time you print this off. So I can put this information on other fields into the footer. Obviously you can't put too much information in there, but you can see the preview there. The footer at the moment's just got the page number on. I'm going to leave that as it is. The legend though, which is this on the bottom there, I don't want that on every page because that is taking up space and it's something I can sort out. I'm not going to take it off completely because a lot of people don't know what these symbols mean. I'm just going to tick the legend page, and when I click OK to that, you'll see what happens. So it's gone off there. If I move across, I've got a page at the end with just the legend on, so you get the best of both worlds. Come back out of there. Now I want to show you how to embed documents into these tasks. One of the conflicts I think you get in Microsoft Project is how much information do you put in this task list. People like to put everything down there, so I tell people don't write War and Peace. You don't need a massive list. If you've got processes in place where you may have method statements already that you are using, why change that by writing a whole thing in Microsoft Project? Embed the method statement in one of these tasks. People can read. When they've done the method statement, they can update the task as being complete. So to do that, if you double click on the task like that, you come into this thing called task information, this box, and you've got the general tab, predecessors, which we'll look at in a later module. Basically it's how you tell project which task this follows. Resources, one place that you can add resources. Advanced, lots of information in there that we'll look at in later modules. And then notes, this is where I want to be for this little bit. So I'm going to type specification, for example. You need to put a little title or some text in there because when it appears in this information column, if you haven't got a title, you only get an apostrophe appearing there, and it's quite hard to understand what that is without having to double click into it each time. So say this is, we're coordinating teams here. This is the document that specifies the type of people that you want. So I'm just going to click on Insert Object, and then it should access my computer. So you've got two options here, new file type, which I could go and get one of these, or from file that you've already created. So I'm going to browse for a file that's on my computer. I'll just get an Excel file. One of these will do. I'll get charting. Now at the moment, if I click OK to that, that will embed a copy of that file into this task, which I don't want because that would be a dead copy. If I tick that option, link, that means it's a live link, like a pointer. So any changes to that Excel file will be reflected through this. And then if I tick this option, it will be displayed as a pointer, as an icon, as opposed to opened and expanded. So I'll click OK to that. It should come in. It takes a couple of seconds. Now the benefit of doing this is you're using Microsoft Project as a one-stop shop for all your project documentation. So rather than having files outside of Project, you can drill through the tasks into the relevant places and get the information. Over a long project, that's a benefit because people tend to forget where things are in project files if you've created lots of different files. But if it's through the project plan, it's a lot easier. Now you see that pointer there. If I double click on that, that should open that file. Now she blows. So that's an Excel file. If I did any changes on that, it's a live change. I don't want to save that because I didn't do anything. So I'll click OK to that one. And then on trained staff, before I do that though, there you go, look, there's a little symbol and there's the title. So if I didn't have a title, it would just say notes with the apostrophe, which doesn't tell you anything. So now I just want to do one last thing. On trained staff, I'm going to call this budget. And I'm going to embed another document. This time it's going to be a blank Excel spreadsheet. So Microsoft Excel workbook. I'm still going to display it as an icon because if I had more than one document embedded, if I don't have them displayed as icons, I would have to scroll down to the bottom of each one to get to the next one, which is slightly irritating, especially if it's a Word document and there's quite a lot of pages in there. So that's opened Excel. Now it says worksheet in project 1. I don't even have to save this. It stays in embedded inside the project task. But I could save it if I wanted to and have it outside onto my computer if I need to do that. But let's just do a few things, 3 things. So I use these in addition to the cost resources just to give me a bit more scope. You've got the whole functionality of Excel by bringing this in there. So I'll just do 3 items: hotel, fuel, and food. And give us some prices: 1, 2, 3, £50 and £50. Then just add those up, format them to pounds. So there's my little task list. Now I can keep adding things, and that figure there is in this example are expenses, and I could add that figure as a fixed cost into my project plan at the end or whenever I'm having a report phase. The benefit of this is just dynamic. It's got all the functionality of Excel, like I've said, and I can keep coming in and out of this. If I close this down, it just sits there like that as an icon. If I double click on it again, it should just open, and I can edit it again, and so on. So both options are quite useful, and I use them both in most of the projects that I use. Now, one last thing I want to mention about the Gantt chart is displaying a critical task. Now, a critical task or critical path is, according to the default settings, a set of tasks that have no space between them. So there's no day gaps or hour gaps between the tasks. The tasks themselves are critical. And a critical path is the shortest time a project can be completed. So if you've got set tasks, for example, you do a foundation or a concrete foundation, and it takes 5 days for that concrete to dry before you can do anything else to that task or on that task, that would be a 5-day critical task. You can't make it any shorter than that, no matter what you do. Other tasks can go on around those 5 days, but that 5-day period would be the critical task. Now, to show a critical task, on the Format tab, you've got this option, Critical. Now, because there's loads of gaps in this project, you can see that only the last team meeting has gone red because it's critical. That is probably, if I put that to 1 day, that's now gone red because that's the last task, but it can't show it red because it's got 0 duration, so that's how that one's gone red. Now, if I delete these team meetings, so I'm just going to delete those off. Now we get a load more tasks going critical. So these are all critical. These ones are not critical because there's a gap there, a 2-day gap there that could move forward on. Likewise with that one. But again, it's showing you critical. I've killed a task there, haven't I? Core teams develop project. I think that was product. Okay, now when you do delete tasks, I'll just remind myself, people tend to just click there and press delete. Now what happens there is all this is left behind if you do it like that. So what you need to do, if I just do undo, you need to highlight the whole row and then press delete, and then that will get rid of it. And then if you can do undo, if I want to move a task, I can click on this bit and then use this tool to move it to wherever I want, and then undo that if I don't want to do that. Now on the Gantt chart itself, you can actually move tasks. So I'm just going to come down a little bit on there so you can see this better. If I sit my mouse on this task, I can push that forward and move it into next week. Now that's gone red now because that is the only critical task. There's a gap there, so it's showing red. I'll just take that critical off for a minute. Now when I've done that, it's the same as me changing this day manually, so we get the same thing coming up in the information column, a little moderate constraint. Now if you sit your mouse on the front of that task, you can accidentally start doing percentage complete on it. So you have to be quite careful where you sit your mouse. Let's do undo on that. If you sit your mouse on the front end of that, you can accidentally extend it. So I'm not saying don't move it with the mouse, but just be careful where you sit with the mouse pointer when you are trying to move it. This is quite an easy one to pick up because it's quite long. But if that was a very small task like 2 hours, you could easily get the wrong symbol and then you are doing not what you think you're doing. So guys, that's the end of this module. I hope you've enjoyed it. What I want to talk about in this module is how you can create your own calendar and how you can modify a pre-existing calendar. So the way project works is that you have on the project tab a calendar, change working time. The timings that are set here come through from options. If I just click into options so you can see where they are. So on the schedule option, you can see the default time, start time and end time, and the hours per day, etc., etc. So that's where it's getting its information from. You can change those if you wish, or you can just edit these calendars. So the default calendars you get are 24 hours, a night shift, and the standard project calendar, which is this one. If I go on to work weeks, you can see those default options coming through to all of these days, and Saturday being a non-working day and Sunday being a non-working day. Now, when you change this calendar, any resource that you create will just copy this calendar, and that calendar or this calendar will be their calendar. However, there may be occasions where you need to create your own calendar for a particular resource set, which I'm going to show you in a second. But first off, let's just explain how that works. Now, on the exceptions tab, there's work weeks, there's exceptions. You can put things like Christmas breaks or bank holidays. So if I just put Christmas break for this year, say we break up on the 23rd and we come back on the 28th of December, see that colours in, and so there is a normal working day with the default timings. There is a non-working day now based on this exception. In the work weeks, you can do this as well. So there's the default working times that I've already shown you, but you can also do this. For example, let's say in the summer you're in a hot country and people don't work the same hours. So let's say the 1st of June 2021 until the 1st of October 2021, which just happens to be a Friday. The working times for that period, which is all coloured up there now, because it's really, really hot, so I'll just highlight all of these, just down to Friday. Set the specific working times, so tick that. And I'll delete this bottom block, and let's say we start work at 6, because it's quite cool still. I'll just get in cursor in there. Change that to 06. And we finish at 1300. Or 1400, let's make it 1400. Okay, so during that period, this will automatically clock over to take those timings. During this normal period or any other period outside of that, it will be the default timings. So there's the exception. So you'd put bank holidays and factory shutdowns and things like that in this list. Now if I click OK to that and go and create myself a resource, when I create a resource, I'll just create Bob. And the only reason I've typed Bob is because it's only 3 letters. If I double click into Bob, change working time, you can see this is just a resource calendar for Bob. Base calendar is the standard calendar, which I've just changed 2 seconds ago. So if I come down to December, you can see it's picking up the holiday that I set on the base calendar. It's just a complete copy of this. Now if I cancel this off and cancel it again, what you can do, let's say you want Bob to be able to work in December. So if I try and put this task to December, the 23rd, for example, that day, it's telling me that that's a non-working day. Do you want to set it as a working day? Not really, I don't. So it's forcing me to move it to the next working day, which is Tuesday the 29th. Just leave that for a second. What I'm going to do is create a calendar for engineers. And let's say Bob is an engineer. So going back up into change working time, create new calendar. So I'm going to call it engineers. Engineers. I'm going to have it as a new base calendar. So it's not a copy of that. Or I could leave it as a copy of that because I'm not going to change the timings. Click OK. Click OK. Nothing's getting done. I'm not doing the Christmas break. Click OK. Now if I go to Bob, I can set Bob to have that calendar as his base calendar. Engineers. And then if I come down to December, whoops, went past it, is able to work. I'll click OK. OK. Now obviously this task still won't let me select December the 23rd, even though if I put Bob on it, let's have a look. Let's put Bob onto that. Bob's on it, so he's able to work on the 23rd, but the task itself ignores that, still wanting me to move the task to the 29th. So what you have to do is you need to double click on task C and get yourself onto the advanced tab, which I am on, and then assign a calendar to this task. So I'm going to assign that calendar engineers, and sometimes you might want to tick that if you've got like a machine running for 24 hours 7 days a week. You might want to have that tick so no resource allocation affects the actual running of the machine. So I'll click OK to that. Now this should now let me select the 23rd of December because this calendar has not got any exceptions on it. So there you go, it allows me to select the 23rd of December, even though for the base calendar that is a non-working time. So this engineer, Bob, can come into work on the 23rd and do whatever he has to do. And if I change the duration to 3 days, he should still be able to work because that's allowed on this calendar. So that's a quick look at calendars. That's all I want to talk about in this session. So that's the end. I'll see you on the next one. This session, I want to talk about creating a repeating task along the same line. I have quite a lot of clients ask if you can show the same process going on the same line rather than coming down as separate tasks. So that's what I want to show you today, and this is how you do it. So first of all, in fact I'll call it process. So call it process, and let's say it's a 2-day process which repeats 3 times. So there's your first one, it's on there. Now I want it to repeat on Thursday and Friday there and there, the next 2 weeks going on, so 3 altogether. What you have to do is double click on the white to get into the bar styles, or if you don't want to do that or you find that difficult, because sometimes I was doing this session yesterday, people were double clicking on the white and it was just creating tasks. It's a bit of a fault, that is. So if you double click and it creates a task, it doesn't matter, you can go format and then format again and get bar styles from there. But whichever way you do it, you need this box. And then scroll down to the bottom of this list, and what we have to do is create 2 additional lines. So process, I'll call it. You get this shape where you can change the shape. So I'm going to change the color to red and the end to an arrow going that way. And then same for the middle bit. I'll put it green, and then I'll have an end shape and then red. In fact, I'll do that one red as well. Red. Yeah, a terrible color. There it is. I don't particularly like that color, but there you go. Now you have to select what type of task you want to show this for. So this is going to be for normal tasks. And then this is the key bit. You have to change the fields. So you can't use this task start, these two, start and finish. You can't use those. So you'll have to use the field called start 1. So start 1 and finish 1. So I already put that in there for us. Now, but you have to be careful again with this, because these fields get used when you're saving, not baselines, but saving, I'll just show you, wait a minute, just come out of that. If I go to project and set baseline, so interim plans use these start and finish fields. So if you've been using this, you can't do what I'm about to show you. So these are quite old now. Most people just save baselines and use these. But just be careful, because if there's information in these fields, you're going to overwrite that information. So I'll just cancel that off. Come back into this. So that was the first one down the bottom there. And then I'm going to repeat that for the second one. So we'll still call it process, call it process 1. I'll do the same little diagram. Arrow going right, color red, color green, and red, and shape pointing right. I'll click OK to that. And no, I'll select this first, sorry, normal. And then now you need to select start 2, and finish 2. So it's going to give you a separate set of data. Click OK to that. Now at the moment there's nothing there because we haven't actually done anything. We need to insert those columns. So insert column, right click at the top, insert column, type S to get to the S's. You want start 1 and then you want finish 1. Insert column, type F, finish 1, and then you want start 2, insert column, S, start 2, and insert column, finish 2, and then you now populate with the dates. So I said the 23rd and the 24th for the first one, and then you get your little symbol, and then the week after that would be the 30th and the 1st of May, and you get your little symbol after that. Now this table, you can save this table so you can quickly access it at a later date. To do that, you go View, Tables, save this table as a new table, and I'll call it Process. Okay, then because I've messed up the entry table, I'll just get rid of these 4 fields, these 4 columns. Just delete those off, and then in the tables list you have process, entry. Sorry, I've done that wrong. Get rid of that. I've probably killed this off now for process. I have, so I'll just have to add those back again. So insert start 1, insert finish 1, and insert start 2, and insert finish 2, like so. So that is the process table. Yep, so if I click on entry, entry's back to normal. Process is sitting up there and you can quickly click into it. So there's entry and then you've got process. So you need process to actually populate. If you've got other similar sort of tasks coming down there, you would need the process table on so you could fill in the relevant dates. And if you need more repeating tasks like that on the same line, you would have to create additional lines down here, and then you would need to insert the columns if you wanted more repeats. But for the additional ones, if I let's try putting a process 1 there, just leave it on 1 day. You just start populating this in the same way. 23rd, 24th, and there you go. Now, when you save a table, so if I go back to more tables, if you look at the organizer, you can see your table is there, but it's also in the global template. So in theory, if I close this down, come out of this, cancel this, do Control N for new, go to tables, there's my process table, so it's still there. And if I show you in the more tables organizer, and then you can see processes in the global template. So if you didn't want that, you would have to make sure you're not on it, otherwise it won't let you delete it, but you can just delete it and get rid of it through this organizer box. So that was how to create repeating tasks on the same line. In this module, I want to talk about a Hammock task. So what I've got on the screen is 3 examples of Hammock tasks. Now, in this little text box, I've put a description of what a Hammock task is. Basically, it has no set duration. The duration of a Hammock task is derived from the start of another unrelated task. So we're not talking about links here, and the end of a second unrelated task. So this example here, that's the Hammock task. The start of the Hammock task is derived by the start of task B, and the end of it is derived by the end of task C. Same on that one. And the one at the bottom is slightly different in the fact that the hammock is in the middle, and that's more of a classic way of doing it. So we don't know how long this is going to be, but it's going to be the length between these 2 tasks. Now that could be the start and end of the project, or it could be the start and end of a particular phase of the project. This is quite often used to show costs, or in this example I've called this file scaffolding. How long does the scaffolding have to be up for? Don't know. Depends how long the job starts, how long the job is. So how long does it take from the start of this task to the finish of that task, whatever that is. That is the length of time the scaffolding would have to be in place. Just an example. If you're not into scaffolding, obviously that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I'm not into scaffolding either. But now what you have to do is use copy and paste special and paste link with these tasks. So if I replicate these, so if I just type my 3 sets of tasks, task A, task B, task C. So if I do the top option, so if I'll call that one Hammock. So the start of the hammock is derived from the start of task B, let's say. So you click on to task B, start, Control C, copy, and you click on to the hammock start, and you can either right click or paste special is what you need, paste link. Okay. So those 2 are now linked together. So I'm going to color those in yellow, and then you want the end date from task C, copy, paste special, paste link. Okay, so those 2 are linked, so I'll just change those to a different color, blue, light blue, and that one. So that's how you set the thing up. Now, when any of these task durations change, so if task B, the start duration changes, and the end duration changes, or either or, the hammock should react to it. So at the minute they're all starting at the same on the same date. Now, in some versions of project, this automatically updates. It has a little bit of a delay, but if it doesn't update automatically on you, what you need to do is just close and reopen the file, which is what I'm going to do. I'll show you that in a second, and it will ask you to update links, and then you can do that. So let's change something. If I say this, well, let's say the end of the project is, or this task, it's not the end of the project, this task moves forward to next Friday. I don't want to have a link, so clicking OK to that, and then OK to that. So now the Hammock task should move across and show that distance, and it does take a little bit of time, so I'm just going to save this and close it down and just open it up again. So that'll just speed this bit up. Open scaffolding. It should come up and say, do you want to update links? I say yes, and then it should update the links, and you can see the Hammock task has gone across to the end of task C, so that worked okay. Now if I come back down and do another example, so I'll do the example where the hammock is in the middle. So I'll do task A, hammock, task B. So I can't have lowercase, it was my heading. So hammock. So this time the start of this task is going to drive that one. So copy that and into this one, paste special, paste link, okay, and I'll just color code those two again. This time they can be blue, and then the end of this task will dictate the end of that task. So if I copy that one, paste special onto this one, paste link, okay, color those two a different color, so those are the two linked ones. I'll go for yellow again. Alright, so the duration, so at the moment everything's on the same day, so let's say the start goes forward a week, I don't want to link, and the end of this set of tasks goes into next week, say, no link, okay. Now the hammock should come across, move across and sit between these two. So if I just save and close this down and then reopen it, scaffolding, yes I do want to update links, and there you can see it's moved across, sitting between them. Now the time you wait for this to do it automatically depends on your computer, but sometimes it's just a couple of seconds, other times it's a minute or so. So I'd rather just close and reboot the thing to get it to do it automatically, update. I'll click it and I'll force it to happen, because I don't like to look at schedules that aren't accurate. But that is how you set up a Hammock task. So I hope that has been of use to you, and I'll see you in the next session. This is exercise 1, guys. What I want you to do is have a go at creating this project. So it tells you what to do and how to save it, or what you should call it, new location. So basically it's a very simple set of tasks. You're creating 2 title tasks with an indent for each of these subtasks. And then as you come down through this, you're adding a recurring task, which is for every day, every week, should I say, for the next 4 weeks. So it's weekly, every week for the next 4 weeks. And then once you've done that, you're just changing the views to have a little practice at changing views. And then you're coming down and you're changing the same file so that the indents are slightly different. So you can see fit interior is moved across there, it's indented across. And then below that, you are creating this second file, so you can close that new location down. This second file, this file is called software implementation, and make sure it's set to auto schedule, and then you're typing out that list there. And then once you've done that, you carry on and you are creating this timeline in the file called new location. So you can close software implementation, and then you're changing the working time for the whole project. So Wednesdays is a non-working day, and then you're setting up the following margins. You just follow this down and follow the instructions. So I've come on to a second sheet there. So that's all about the legend, doing a little note, and then you're creating a new project there. Look, move into a new house, so that you can save this project and close it. And then you're setting the time scale to hours and then putting it back. That's just a practice changing it over. And this is the project plan that you need to create. And again, that is a recurring task. Don't type these out. It's every week for 5 weeks. That should be. And then you're following these instructions below to complete these tasks. And once you've done that, you should be able to see things like this. And the last couple of things is use the filter to display tasks due to start this week, and remove all filters and clear all groups. And that's the end of exercise 1. So once you've done that or completed that, you can move on to the next phase. If you need to go back over the video to try and find the bits that you can't quite remember how to do, just watch that video again and you can redo the exercise. But that's the end of this little exercise. I'll see you on the next phase.